Hey, Kurt, another week of PBT Extra. Let's just go straight into it. MVP race. Who's the top of the ladder right now? Is it Jokic, Embiid, Giannis? Who do you have?
Those are the top three. It's a big man year. You should be loving this, right? Like
Believe me, Kurt, I'm stoked. The return of the big man.
it is. It is definitely a big man year. I think that those three have clearly separated themselves from the second tier. With look the bottom of this: Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan, John Morant, Luka Doncic, whoever else you want to put in there. Like there's, it's not going to be easy to pick the last couple, but to me, Antetokounmpo, who we're going to count as a big man because he's been playing a lot of center, plus 7 foot, um, plus Jokic and Embiid. That to me are the top three. And I wrote about this morning. It's like a coin flip to me. Like they are all so tightly bunched together in terms of not just statistically or watching them, but also in a lot of ways what they've been asked of their teams. Like they have had to take on, each one of them has had to take on more. Embiid has been without Ben Simmons. Now he's got Harden and Maxey stepped up, and there's been no center. Brook Lopez has been out all year in Milwaukee, so it's been a lot more Giannis at center minutes. Obviously, Jokic has had no Murray, no Porter. There's been so much asked of these guys, and every one of them has stepped up with this kind of epic season. It's been, I mean, Corey, when was the last time you remember a race this open this late?
Last year. I mean, Giannis, but I feel like last year was Joel and Jokic. It's the same kind. For me, Joel is
Yeah,
remember like in Harry Potter, you're looking for this that like the seeker. That kind of is what to me Joel Embiid is like. Right, like he's so close. Like it's
yeah.
right within his reach. Like if he could just grab that MVP, it's so close for him. Jokic is clearly there. I mean, look at his back-to-back last two in back-to-back games. He puts up triple doubles, 32 points on 70% field goal shooting, 15 rebounds, 13 assists, 46 points on 73% shooting, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. Like Jokic is just a machine. I mean, whenever Luka Doncic does those things, we all like are awed. I think it's like we're almost tired of seeing Jokic do it. Like that's how brilliant he is.
Yeah.
And that is like the ultimate compliment when people get bored of your brilliance. Like every time you hear like Steve Kerr talk about Steph Curry, and it's like we see this all the time, and it's still mind blowing after all these years. Like we're entering that space with Jokic, aren't we? Where it's just like, how is he doing this?
Yeah, his passing is just jaw dropping at points. He has this almost innate sense of spacing and feel and where guys are that is unbelievable. It's just you can run him at the elbows, the hub of the offense, and he just finds guys in the opposite corner. Seems to always make the right decision, makes these brilliant passes, and it is kind of. I think sometimes we get a little numb watching it. I will say if I had to vote today, and I think I've got a month of lost sleep to figure out how I'm ultimately going to vote on this. I mean, because I think it'll shift over time probably. But if I had to vote today, I'd have Jokic number one. I'd have Embiid a close second and Giannis Antetokounmpo third. But it's so close that ask me in a week and I might feel differently about this. Like I think it's that kind of. I think it's that kind of race, and that's fun. To me, it reminded me of the year Russell Westbrook won with the triple double, but Harden was right there, and Kawhi Leonard got votes and deserved votes. That it feels like that year where I can make a legitimate case for any of those three guys.
Yeah, for me, Jokic is right now number one, but Giannis is number two for me, not Joel. I think Joel, it's only a matter of time the way he's playing right now. But once again, with Embiid, it's almost like, do you want this? And then the answer is yes or no. It's like one of those incredible. He's so talented, where he
Yeah,
could choose to be MVP or not. Does that make sense? Like I think
yeah,
it's one of those things where if he sets the bar of I want to be an MVP, like we saw that in the past few years, it's like people challenged him around in the organization to step up his game, and now he's number two or number three, depending on what list you're on, your list or my list, in MVP voting for the second year in a row, right? So it's almost like just set the bar and Joel can do it if he wants to. And that, to have that kind of control over your destiny when you're talking about, I don't know, being the best player in the world, like that's crazy. So I don't ever want to count him out. That's why I say he's so close. He's like a seeker in
yeah.
Harry Potter. But for me, I mean, Giannis is clearly the number two in my mind. But what Jokic is doing is just, it's splendid. It's as a fan, uh, it's just like bravo.
I I wrote this today. I think with Giannis in some ways, with Antetokounmpo, if you don't, you almost need to see him in person because he does. Yes, he puts up highlights, not necessarily the highlights Embiid and Jokic put up seemingly nightly, like with these ridiculous numbers. But if you watch him play a game, he is genuinely in control of it, right? He is in control of the flow of it, and he is defensively dictating things. And it's more Chris Paul-like in the sense of like, this is how I want the game to go. I can will the game to go this way. Then, and I think, look, Embiid and Jokic have some of that too, but you almost need to watch Embiid, and then Antetokounmpo up close to see just how dominant he is, just how he's like, all right, well, this is what you're going to do. Now he has the counters to everything now, which is just taking his game to another level.
And the fact that you're talking about a MVP just keep getting better. 39, 7, and 7 is his last game stat line. And you're right. The thing that makes Giannis so amazing is it doesn't feel like that. Like you look at Joel's numbers and Giannis's numbers are better than Joel's numbers right now. And and that's the crazy thing is Giannis does it in like the most hyper efficient way. And to me, he's like thunder and lightning. It's like he's slashing it in transition. He's from the 3-point line. It slams, but like it's amazing to me how efficient he is. But I want to bring your attention to the Eastern Conference. One of my favorite darlings of the Eastern Conference, the Celtics. Sometimes they're the darlings. Sometimes it's confusing. What are your takes right now on this team? Are they real contenders for a championship now?
Just the me from November heard me say this right now. I'd probably slap myself, but yeah, they're contenders. Like that was a team that like before Christmas didn't look like a contender at all, did it? Like they looked lost and confused, pushing back against Ime Udoka. He's calling the players out for not playing hard enough multiple times. Like that team took a while to find itself, but Corey, it's found itself, hasn't it? Like their guys are buying it. First off, best defense in the NBA. That to me puts you on a contender level if your offense is even decent because you know you're going to be in every game. The guys are buying into their roles. They're comfortable with who they are and what they are now. And what they really needed most was not Jason Tatum to just, drop 50 plus like he did on the Nets over the weekend. Like he's such a good playmaker now. His playmaking skills have reached a new level that he's getting everyone else involved. And when he's doing that, there's enough offense there for them. So yeah, in an East where I don't see a dominant team, I mean, do you think that they're there?
Not yet, but they're awfully close. Like you said, Jason Tatum's next evolution, he's one of those players where it's only a matter of time. And you can say that about like a handful of players. And this is the best league in the world. But Jason Tatum separates himself clearly. When Kevin Durant says he's like the anointed one to be the next all-time leader for the Olympics, like he's like, this is the guy. That's pretty clear what the expectations are for him. But the next step in his development is getting everyone else better. Because we know he can drop 54 points whenever, and he did, like last game, right? So we know that Jason can do that. But the fact that the Celtics are 19-3 in recent weeks, I think you're onto something. It's starting to come together. But haven't we seen this before?
That's the concern, right? And the concern for me is in the cauldron of the playoffs when everything gets tense and tight and hot, does Jason Tatum kind of revert to his Kobe nature, right? And just start pounding the ball a little bit and not being the playmaker, but taking more on himself. And then things get a little disjointed with them and that flow isn't there. Like they have to keep this style of basketball and we have to see them do it under pressure. That's my biggest concern with them, but I still think because of their defense, they're in it nightly. And the other thing they've got, I think, going into the postseason, it's what the Clippers have tried to do. They just haven't been able to stay healthy. Wing play is so critical in the postseason. Versatile two-way wing play. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can take you a long way, man.
Yeah, it's the Celtics team to me reminds me of what the Seahawks have been recently in football, where you're like, you have really good players, right? Like Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner. Like you have some incredible players and you're winning 10 plus games each season, but something doesn't feel right. Like how do you have DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson, all these guys, but you're not in the Super Bowl. And that's kind of how I feel about the Celtics. I look at their roster and I'm like, well, Jaylen and Jason any given night can trade 50-point games. They have like great coaching staff, great organization, great leadership. and yet something's like why are they not there yet? Like the chemistry isn't melding yet, and that to me is confusing, and I don't know the answer. And I think the past couple of years we've been scratching our heads. Is it's just like, do we just need to wait longer and let it settle until so, or does it need to be like a mix up? I'm not sure, but it reminds me an awful lot of the Seahawks, and what we've learned recently the past couple of days is the Seahawks started from scratch and they moved on. So I do wonder in the next few years, what is that time horizon for this Celtics team? Because think about it, Kemba used to be there, Kyrie used to be there. Who knows what the patient will be like with this construction, this configuration around Jason and Jalen. I think Jason's clearly the franchise player, but who knows what it's going to look like in 3-4 years.
I think you're clearly, with the Seahawks analogy, trying to start some Jason Tatum trade rumors is what you're doing.
Oh, no, I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not. Absolutely not.
No, but I don't think you're wrong in the sense that I'm not saying this is the last chance that grouping gets, but Jason and Jalen have had their chances. They've got another one this year. If it doesn't work out, at some point you have to look at the core of how this is built and say, all right, it's not working. What do we have to do to change up? Hey, we're Dallas. Okay, the Porzingis thing isn't working for us. We've got to move on. They might get to that point with Jalen and Jason and say that isn't there. But this year they got a chance, so we'll see what they do with it.
Now let's talk about the Lakers. We spend an awful lot of time talking about LeBron James and Anthony Davis, rightfully so. But let's spend some time talking about Russell Westbrook. You look at his stats, 18-7-7. For some reason, doesn't necessarily look like it translates well, right, to wins. So there's been a lot of pushback, just generally speaking, and even to the point of threats and attacks on his family. And this is what Magic Johnson said on Twitter about this. And I quote, Laker Nation, it's our responsibility to come together and support Russell Westbrook and his family. Threats and attacks on the Westbrook family are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. There's no place in sports for this type of behavior, period. End quote. He even said in a different one, talking about Russell's role on the team, quote, Russell plays an important role on the Lakers team and will be a key component to the success of the rest of the season and the NBA playoffs. Let's do better, rally around the Westbrook family and support them, end quote. What is your take on what Russell Westbrook means to this team?
Yeah. First off, amen to Magic on the, there's a line for you. The attacks that were coming at Westbrook were wildly unfair and out of line. As a trade, it didn't work, Corey. I don't think we can sugarcoat this. It has not fit. It has not worked. I think that the Lakers felt they needed a third star to help carry the team a little bit because LeBron knows he's 37 and there's a lot of miles on there. And Anthony Davis has an injury history and they wanted that third star. I think mentally where they thought Russell Westbrook was in their memory of MVP level Russell Westbrook and where he was the last couple of seasons is not the same guy. His efficiency has dropped. He has not been that level of shooter at all. And the lack of shooting really held them back. And asking him to step into this smaller, more efficient role, none of it has worked. He has pushed back against the smaller roles and the idea of coming off the bench. The whole thing has not blended. It's just going to be expensive for them to get out of it. I don't totally look. I don't know what Westbrook said to them. I don't know if he said, hey, I'm willing to do all this and then isn't willing to, or if this is a case of the Lakers just really misjudging where he was in his career. But I think there's some blame for this not working out on both sides, and both sides I've heard are ready to move on in the offseason. That's just expensive for the Lakers.
Now let's go on to Dallas. So Dallas is a pretty exciting scenario because one, you have Luka. And any scenario with Luka is exciting, but two, Spencer Dinwiddie in this post-Porzingis world has stepped into that role very nicely. This team is sitting in the 5th spot in the Western Conference. Kurt, what are your expectations for this Dallas team?
They might win a round this year. I really like them, how they've come together. Look, they've been looking forever for a good second ball handler to go next to Luka to take some of that load off. And Jalen Brunson, to his credit, has stepped into that role a lot this year. But now so has Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's come over as a third ball handler, if you will, and has thrived. 18 points a game for them. He's shooting efficiently, shooting over 40% from three. He's comfortable. Luka creates space for them. And they're just flowing a lot better. Dwight Powell as a role guy is a natural fit. They're not waiting around for Porzingis anybody. Like, it's just smooth right now. And they're a real problem, by the way. Like, it is lining up for a Dallas versus Utah 4-5 first round series, right?
Someone who's not named the Clippers.
Yes, exactly. I watched them play each other in the last week. I went back and watched that game carefully. It's not good news for Utah. Like, that is, and I think Utah can win that series because Rudy Gobert in the middle is one of the few guys who can kind of switch onto Doncic and cause some problems. And the problem is when Dinwiddie's hitting, when Brunson's getting to the rim, when Dorian Finney-Smith is knocking down shots, when and on down the line with those, when their role players are really comfortable, and you've got to spend so much energy stopping Doncic, they beat you. Like, they're hard to stop when everybody else is hitting, and it's a tough matchup for Utah, who, look, they've had a good defense because Rudy Gobert is so special. They don't have a lot of good perimeter defenders around him right now, and Luka's a problem.
Yes. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how, because we talk about, figuring out, okay, well, do trades work at certain time periods? It's been a very short sample size, but Spencer Dinwiddie, especially the way that he exited Washington, it seems as though he has a fire in his belly out there playing for Dallas, and you mix that with Luka's consistency tripled up. I mean, it could be very, very, very powerful. I like what's happening in Dallas. I'm telling you, Kurt. When Jason Kidd came in, made some tough decisions. His mentorship with Luka, being a point, seeing the game. This could be very interesting in a couple of years.
I'm with you. Look, they're still it's Mark Cuban's team. They're still big game hunting, right? Like, they're still looking for the ultimate number 2 to go next to Doncic. But the team they have around him right now can do real damage.
Yeah, potentially upset a team named Utah. Now it's my favorite time every single week, Kurt, PBT Picks. The question that our super producer, Kendi, gave us today are, who are you building a team around? And this is one of my favorite questions. Like, when I'm just sitting at my house, just thinking, kind of pass the time on a random day. This is a question I ask myself, Kurt. If I had a franchise today, who would I build around? And I'm so honored to ask you this question. Who are you choosing and why?
It is tough because some of the names out there, I mean, I don't think you can totally look. If you put Trae Young, I'd be really excited if I were in Charlotte and I had LaMelo Ball in that mix, right? Like, I'd be excited to see that. And there's other young, John Morant. I don't think you can go wrong with John Morant. But if you made me pick one, I'd still pick Luka. I'd still pick Luka Doncic because the pick and roll is eternal. Honestly, by his second year, he was the best pick and roll operator in the league. He's now easily the best, I think. I think the other thing we forget about him is he's big and he's durable. He's 6'8". And while we've had questions about his conditioning and all that, I'm not really questioning his commitment to winning, his competitiveness. I think he gets there mentally. He's still young. He's like, what, 22? Like, he's still
23.
23. Oh, well, then he's an old man. I think he's starting to figure out what it takes for him to reach the next level. And same with the Mavs. And so to me, that's the guy I'd go with. Ja would probably be a close second, though, because if nothing else, man, I would just get to watch Ja every night.
Oh, it's so funny. And then once again, the important thing here is young players, right? Obviously, anyone in the entire league, we're focusing on young players to build a franchise around. Those are some good picks. I agree with you. I think it has to be Luka. I also am going to cheat a little bit and say Giannis, because Giannis is 27. So Giannis, I mean, you think about today's NBA, I mean, you're looking at another decade with Giannis at least. So you're telling me I can sign up for another decade with Giannis? That's number one. And number two has to be Luka. And then after that, I actually have to sit down and really think about it. But those two, it's like immediate. Boom, boom.
Yeah, I think obviously Giannis's game translates to the playoffs. He's got the ring to show it. I think Doncic's does too. I think that's the advantage, is that they're also both tall. Having that size ultimately matters, man. With all due respect to John and what Chris Paul has done with his career, I'll take tall.
Yeah, I love absolutely love watching Ja Morant right now too, and I think Memphis would have to agree. I think a lot of fans would actually have to agree with you. All the social media impressions too that he's been receiving. You think about just today's star, to have that Zion effect in the NBA, in a small market like Memphis. I mean, could you imagine Ja in a place like, like in a bigger market, like what that would mean to the NBA? I mean, it's like, so yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that one. But for me, it has to be Giannis, Luka.